Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hello, everybody. This is Marco Ciappelli. Welcome to another episode of Audio Signals Podcast. As I said lately, I've repositioned the antenna. So you used to be something about anything that would spark my curiosity, but I decided to focus on stories and storytellers, why they tell their story, and what is the story behind the story. So there's a lot of story there. And if you know me, you know I like stories. Today, I'm really excited because it's been a story in the making for a long time. The podcast we have discussed for a very long time with my friend Tyler Cohen Wood, which is here with me. If you're watching the video, she's waving. If you're listening, and I always do this joke, I'm not lying. She's right here. You're going to hear her voice. So I'm going to welcome Tyler to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited, to get this podcast started.
I am really excited, and I am going to pretend that I don't know you.
Okay.
The truth is that I do know you. We've talked many times, again, about this specific podcast that you are about to launch, but we'll talk about other things. I mean, I can say we know each other pretty well, but when I have a guest, I just want to think in the way that the audience would think and ask the question that the audience will want to ask. So I'll pretend I don't know you. So,
okay.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to start with a nice question that it's not philosophical, but who is Tyler?
Well, I'm a lot of things. I'm an inventor, a cybersecurity expert. I've been doing a lot of work with AI. I worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency as a deputy cyber chief. Most of my background is DoD government work and cybersecurity. But I'm also a patient of many rare diseases. And it may seem as if these two aren't entirely connected, but they're very connected, especially with AI taking over a lot of these things that we're seeing it everywhere, every day. And, this is a good opportunity to really talk about the patient experience, but also bring in my cybersecurity and, technical background.
And I think that's really fascinating because when I talk, and I talk a lot with infosecurity people, I always say there is something in the brain of people that choose cybersecurity as their career, which often is curiosity, a little bit of a hacking mentality, why things work in a certain way. What can I do to make it better? Yeah. And so I agree with you. I can definitely see the connection with that. And of course, you're also, as you said, bringing in something that you've gone through. And and I think that the goal here is to share your stories so others can learn from it. So tell me a little bit more about the idea of this podcast. Oh, by the way, this will be the first episode of your podcast as well.
I know.
So really no pressure on me. I mean,
so the title of the podcast is going to be Health Exposed, and bridging the gap between health tech and the patient experience. And I'm going to talk about my stories as someone who has a nasty collection of rare diseases and the things that I've learned along the way. But, I will tell you, Marco, I have a lot of rare diseases, and there aren't many treatments for some of them, and there are definitely not cures for some of them. And, for the longest time, I just sort of accepted that was the case. But because of emerging tech and because of AI, I actually do not believe that anymore. I believe that we will start finding cures and better treatments for not only rare diseases, but really every single disease, including long COVID and COVID.
And that's definitely good news and a lot of optimism.
Yes.
And I'm there with you. Um, a lot of people talk about technology, especially in the news, because let's face
Yeah.
it, what really sells the news, unfortunately, is the bad news. And I
Right.
wish,
Right. Exactly.
right? So technology often, I had a podcast about this not too long ago on how since the 80s, the technology has become more and more of a target of, again, bad news. And
Yes.
AI is one of that, but let's face it, it's giving hope to a lot of people.
It sure it is. It is. And we've got to talk about COVID too, because I had a bunch of pre-existing conditions already. I have rare diseases, which we'll talk about on later episodes in the show. But when I got COVID in 2022, it turned into long COVID, and it really exacerbated all of the conditions that I already had. Especially two conditions I have. One is called POTS. It's a dysautonomia disease where if you think about your autonomic nervous system, it controls things like heart rate, digestion, breathing, the things that you don't think about. It just does it for you. Mine doesn't work right. And that's really what POTS is. It's having to be on medications to really regulate the heart rate and the blood pressure. And it's a pretty difficult and tough disease. But when I got COVID, it got way, way worse than it ever had been. And I mean, I guess I'll say I was lucky that I was already so sick and was already seeing many specialists at Johns Hopkins. So I was able to get into their long COVID clinic. And, I went through speech therapy. I went through a lot of different things, some trial medications. And, I'm doing a lot better now, because of that. But, I just think that it's interesting that before COVID, POTS was pretty rare. I mean, there weren't a ton of specialists really working on it. A lot of doctors had never even seen it. But now, post-COVID, you have hospital systems all over the country that now have these POTS clinics. And they have like 3-year waiting lists to get in. So, really talking about these diseases so that people can actually recognize that maybe this is something that they have. I'm not a doctor. I will never pretend to be a doctor. My information is just based on being a patient, but also being very analytical in viewing different types of my conditions and doing the research on them.
Let's talk about that, because here's my observation. Sometimes I talk to people, they go to the doctor and they said, well, the doctor told me I have this, and these are the medicine that I need to take. This is the cure I need to do, and end of the story. They move on with their life. They trust the doctor. Yeah. But that's okay, because I trust my doctors too. The point is, they don't want to know more than what the result of the analysis is, or what I'm saying is they don't dig deep into trying to understand. And your brain works different. You're a cybersecurity person. You're a hacker the real truth meaning of the word, not the cyber criminal, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you want to know more, especially because it's about your life, and especially when somebody tells you, well, this is not curable. You're like, wait a minute. A lot of diseases were not curable before, and then they are. So what am I going to sit here and take that? So tell me more about taking the role of understanding more to, I don't know, cooperate with the doctors, look at the record.
That's really important because there is, and we are going to do a show on this, there is sort of a discrepancy between doctor language and patient language, and we need to kind of bring those together. And, my story in some ways is like a lot of other people's stories. When you have rare diseases where something's wrong, you go to multiple doctors and they've never even seen it before. And they either would say in the beginning, I don't know what this is, or you go see this doctor. But it was really, really difficult to get a diagnosis, and eventually, to get the multiple diagnoses. And I started researching. I started learning everything that I could about the disease categories that I thought that I was in. And I also started reviewing the records in a very different way. Because, for example, from 2018, to today, when I get a blood test called a CBC, my sodium was always either the bottom number of the reference range, or on occasion it would be low. But a doctor is just seeing one record in time. They're not seeing the entire timeline and history of that particular test. And, that's where AI comes in, is AI can do that, because, that was an indication that there was something wrong. But if the doctor, again, is looking at one test in time, they're not going to notice that this is something that actually is a problem. So it was really difficult. And, I wish that I could say that from 2018, from when I first got sick to today, that, I fought and I kept advocating for myself. And I did do a lot of that. But, there was a point in 2019 where I had a doctor say to me, you should just give up because you're never going to find out what it is. And I wish that I had said to her, would you give up if it was you? But I didn't. And I moved into things like Tai Chi and sort of alternate therapies, and it helped, but I was getting sicker. And it really wasn't until early 2020 that I started actually getting diagnoses. And for one of the diseases in particular, I actually diagnosed it myself by taking, and you must understand, I had gone through all of my records, everything, all the time, looking for what this could be. And, I decided one day to kind of do things a little bit differently, like how you would do a cyber forensic case. And you want to look at things that are not necessarily glaring. So things that were kind of noticed in the background on a lot of the CT scans, and looking at it in a very, very different way. And, came up with a particular disease, was tested for it. And I actually do have that disease amongst some others. But it was that kind of sort of mentality that I had to switch to, going back to, I'm a cyber investigator. I'm trying to figure out what happened here. And it worked.
I'm glad it did. And yeah. I'm glad that you decided to share this experience. I'm sure, and it takes time. I think that it become your job, I think, for a certain period of time when you're diagnosed with something that it's life-changing. Somehow I had that kind of experience, not like yours, but I know what it means. But yeah, to hear someone that says, yeah, you should just give up, I'll be like, what the fuck? Sorry for the French, but no.
I had at first, I dealt with the silo where, the GI doctor isn't going to talk to the endocrinologist. And, you just feel like you're in this, you're just being shuffled from silo to silo to specialty. And I went from them no doctor being able to tell what I had to finally getting diagnoses in. And then doctors saying, I'm sorry, but you're too sick for what we can do here. And, that's kind of a scary thing to hear.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to really get to, a teaching hospital that, I'm still at. And, I believe that, a lot of it's hard to get there because, I remember I would hear terms like diagnosis hopping, which is just awful because your body and if you're sick and if something's wrong with it. And to have someone tell you that there's nothing wrong or they don't know what it is. Actually, no one ever said there was nothing wrong. They just said they didn't know what it was, that it probably wasn't a big deal. But you go from that to being too sick to treat to then, finally getting to, a really good hospital with a great set of doctors that really understand the diseases that I have.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about I think the why is clear while you're having this podcast. I don't think we need to go back into that. But let's talk about what you think you can achieve and who are you going to bring on the show to help you to create this story. This isn't a new experiment on storytelling. I mean, again, we will have this conversation on my other show. We can really dig into the technology, the AI, and all of that. That's it's going to be great. But in this case, I want to kind of dig into the back of our mind and say, yep, this is what I want people to get from my story. It's not just sharing this, but it's going, I'm assuming, to take actions.
Yes. I this isn't going to be a show where we just talk about the problems, but don't offer solutions. We're going to give solutions to people, and we're going to be talking to other patients about their experiences. We're going to have doctors on to talk about some of these diseases. And we're going to have a lot of technical people on too, to talk about, the role of AI and things like digital twins, which is a digital representation of something, which could be a person. We're going to talk about the emerging tech and the current tech and the state of how things are. And, we're not going to really shy away from any of these topics. We're going to delve deep into them. And, really the hope is that it helps empower, inspire, and help people that are going through these patient experiences, but also helping to give healthcare providers and really the healthcare industry the tools that they need to be able to see solutions to problems as opposed to just problems. Because I believe that there is no problem that does not have a solution. The solution might be weird, but there's always a solution. And again, I'm really excited about all of the new technology that is coming up in healthcare because, again, I'll say it. I didn't believe that there was really much hope before, but I do now. I believe that very much. And, this show is going to be a lot about hope. And it's going to be a lot about learning about some of these technologies that may be able to help some patients that are out there listening.
I love that. Is there any technology nowadays that, I don't want to put you in a corner here, but that you really, and again, you follow the news in AI like I do, mostly generative more than in the healthcare. But is there any technology that you think, wow, this is really a game changer for or it could be?
There's a lot. There really is a lot. I mean, there's companies now that are doing, they're using AI to go through images. And I'll tell you why that's important. One of the hospital systems that I went to in the early days when we still didn't have a diagnosis at all was the Cleveland Clinic. And one of their GI specialists said that they had done like a test where they took, CT scans from all over the country and they reanalyzed them. And they found that 75% of them were analyzed and they were incorrectly analyzed. So having technology to really do those kinds of difficult types of things is really going to help speed the process up. I'm very excited about AI because AI can do things doctors can't. And that's really where it needs to at least start. I'm also really excited about digital twin technology because eventually it'll be a full like genetic replication digitally of a person. And, like, for example, I have a disease called gastroparesis where my stomach doesn't open without medication. And we've talked about getting a GI pacemaker installed, but because my entire GI tract has issues with movement, it doesn't move very much. It's kind of like one of those hard rubber balls. So we tried this Botox endoscopy where the doctor goes in and with a endoscopy scope with, I guess, Botox needles on it, injects the pylorus, the stomach flap, with Botox, and it falls open to see if that would work. Because if that had worked successfully, then I could be a candidate for either the GI pacemaker or another procedure, that they do. So digital twin technology is exciting because you don't have to worry about those steps. You can actually do tests and you can tailor medications based on what the digital twin is going to represent. So there's a lot of technologies out there, a lot of genetic technologies too that I'm really excited about. Collaborative AI is also something that I'm really, really excited about. I believe, again, I believe.
Explain what is collaborative AI?
So collaborative AI is, maybe you have pharmaceutical A and pharmaceutical company B, and they're collaborating, on a medication or a vaccine or something along those lines. And they're working together, utilizing AI to try to come up with solutions. Because, when you do have AI, you have more of a desire, I think, to really collaborate with other specialists, other hospital systems, other research. And I really believe that that's how the future is going to be. I do believe healthcare will be globalized. I believe that AI will take a big part of that. But I think one of the things that we're moving toward is, instead of specialty siloing, treating the patient like a whole, like a person. And instead of having this doctor that doesn't talk to this doctor, they're all going to work together around the same patient. And that's really where the benefit of healthcare and technology, it's going to really lead to very valuable results for patients.
If we're in storytelling, but I definitely lie when I said we're not going to talk about technology, because how can we not? So right now I want to talk about digital twins, maybe explain what it is. But I think that's relatively clear because you explain it. But the same thing you can do in urbanistic. You can have a digital twin of a building where you try different things, different material, different eco-friendly solution before you even start building it, or before, just to give a better idea of that. But what I want to go here is, if I had to go back in storytelling, if I have to write a sci-fi book right now where my idea is not a dystopia but a utopia, I would think about not the AI that brings the end of the world, or the telnet and all of that, but actually that where we can put together all the knowledge of the world in a nice AI blender that you feed all this data, because that's the power of AI. It's really no more than that, and analyzed it where we all collaborate. It's not that, one company, one pharmaceutical company in this case, is trying to not disclose their formula because they want to make money out of that. But where in this utopia, the final goal, which I believe it should be no matter what, is the well-being of humanity. So, you have a good idea? Bring it in. And then there's another good idea and we can get to the solution. And I think we have seen that with the COVID vaccine. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but the idea of a collaborative work on that, I think that's a good example, right?
Yeah, that is a great example. And actually that was the example I was thinking about in my head. So
This applies to more common diseases as well, right? I
right.
mean, you have, unfortunately, the extreme experience of the rare disease, but
Right.
this is knowledge that I think that people, for everyday things that can happen to their health, even
Oh yeah,
dieting or finding a better medicine, maybe it has less side effect than
exactly.
another. So this show that you're about to launch, and that you would have been launched already when the people hear this conversation, um, who is it for? Who do you want to shake and move and tell this story to? Is just the patients? Is the doctor community?
It's everybody. It's patients, it's caregivers, it's future patients, it's the entire healthcare industry. It's also the technical industry as well, because um, you know, they're the ones that are really propagating the technology. So it's really a show for pretty much everybody.
What's your position on the role of doctors into this? And there is a reason. I don't want to be polemic on this, but I had a few conversations with somebody that I think you should have on the show, which is Dr. Robert Pearl. He is the former CEO of Kaiser Permanente, and he wrote a book about how the healthcare system need to change. It's kind of like too old mentality that is ruining the adoption of new technology, and coming from somebody like him with a lot of experience is a great guest. And I had it on my show a couple of times. So have you found that there is a cultural issue in the adoption of new technology when you talk to doctors, or what's your experience there?
At Hopkins, no. But at prior doctors that I had seen prior, I mean, yeah. Well, and I'll just be frank here. I tried to start an AI based global healthcare system in 2019, but nobody wanted anything like that at the time, because I saw the value in it, and I saw the value in having a system where AI was basically really dictating where each case went. And the AI would actually select different doctors from all over the world to work around a patient, while the machine really learned everything that was happening on that case. Because not only would the doctors be upskilled by a lot just working in a team environment like that, but so would the machine. And that just is going to enhance the learning, which is going to lead to predictive medications or predictive viruses and mutations.
It is all about getting ready, and that's my biggest fear. A good friend of mine, he's a part of the mentor project group that I am part of, but he's also a doctor expert in modeling, right? All the COVID, the pandemics, and all the big the big risk we may have in creating scenario, and using data and computer machine learning and all of that. And he's like, I don't know. He said to me, I don't know if we learn enough from this pandemic to be ready for another one if it comes. And that makes me really pissed and sad.
Yeah, well, that concerns me too. I think a lot about these genetic companies that are, getting broken into, because that's all we need is, some nation state actor creating a biological weapon, a virus, based on genetics. That's something that's kind of scary to me.
Mm-hmm. What's scary to me is the non-collaborative environment that we have still.
The kind of specialty siloing. I mean, I hope that will eventually go away. it's gonna take time, but I believe this technology is moving very rapidly, and when I say I think there's going to be a lot of better treatments, I'm talking about like 5 years. I'm not talking about 30. I think it's going to happen very, very quickly because it is, and technology moves very quickly.
Well, I hope that in the course of your show, I mean, a year in this time, it's a long time. 6 months is a long time.
It is
experimenting now with digital twins and AI modeling. It's a lot different than the trial and error of building a new chemical structure for a medication.
right.
That you actually had to try every single thing. Now you can just feed it into an AI and let that do the job. So I'm with you. I want to give you the last few minutes as we wrap up
Sure.
to make your call, your elevator pitch for why people should listen to your show. What is your vision? And I am sure you'll have a lot of success with your show because you're honest and knowledgeable. And I'm so honored that you're bringing the show to ITSP.
Well, and I care. And I made a promise to myself when I got sick and went through all of that hell that I would do anything that I could to make sure that no one else had to go through that. And, that's kind of my goal, is to really educate, but in a way that really makes sense. And I mean, really, that intersection between technology and the patient experience is important. And, we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to also, go beyond the technical realm. And I'm going to talk about my personal patient experiences in the hope that, it may resonate with somebody that may not know what they have, or a doctor that may hear it and say, oh my goodness, I wonder if that patient has that. But also really helping, big business by really determining, where do we go next, and what is the current technology, what's the future technology, and really how do we bring that together. And, we're going to go all over. We're going to talk about diseases like long COVID, all the way to how to read a CBC or some of your test results. How you can do just a couple of things to improve, your health situation. And, also teaching people how to review their records, what the current systems are, how to keep your data safe. There's so many places that we're going to go with this. And it really is, that intersection between health tech and that patient experience. And I'm very excited about this. And I've wanted to do this show, as you know, for a very long time. But I was kind of afraid of really outing myself as being sick. But I don't care anymore, because I know that what we're going to do here is going to help a lot of people. And that's my goal.
And I have no doubts about it.
Thank you.
You do it with honesty, and I know the people you're going to bring, some of the people that I know you're going to bring on the show, and I'll be one of the biggest fan and definitely watch it and share it. So it's an honor to have you on this show, but also on ITSP Magazine, and I think that a lot of people are going to benefit from what you do. So
thank you. And the honor is mine too.
Wishing you good luck with that. And again, by the time people will listen to this, the channel will be up. You can subscribe, and you should be up to date, because every episode, I think it will be a treat and something that everybody, as you said, could get a little nugget and find it useful. And on the other hand, this is Audio Signals podcast. So some stories are about music, some about theater, some are about new podcasts and health, because we're all made of stories. And especially this one that Taylor is going to share are really, really important. So stay tuned. And Taylor, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Stay tuned.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new, and this story made you think, then share ITSP Magazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.